Hi, it's Bruce Robinson here from the Fathering Project, talking about the really important thing, positive discipline. We get asked by dads all the time, I know it's important to love my kids, but how do I discipline them so that I don't make them feel like they're unloved? Such an important question. One of the things about the bus theory is that the love is unconditional, and that makes it even more complicated. So how do we deal with that? And I understand this because, to be honest, I've got angry with my kids and I've disciplined them inappropriately at times. I feel bad about it, but let me give an example. My oldest son was about 16, he went off to the rugby club. We tried to give him some strategies to not get caught up, but sure enough, he was due home at 11. By 11:15, actually by 10 to 11, my wife was getting anxious. By 11:15, she's really anxious, so am I. I start driving around the streets. Where is he? Where are his mates? And after about an hour, of course, I'm thinking he's dead somewhere, and I'm really angry. So when he got home, I was angry, and I let my anger come out. But so how do you deal with that? Well, with the Fathering Project, we make it really clear you are not your kid's pal. You have to discipline them. They have to know the rules and they have to learn behaviours that stay within the rules. If you don't do that, then you let your kids down. And hey, just the other day I heard about a kid that struck his teacher. He got frustrated, so he punched his teacher. You have to teach your kids the rules of behaviour. So how do you do that in a situation like I just mentioned? Well, we have two really important rules in the Fathering Project. Your child comes home, you're really angry. So the first thing is you don't use it as an opportunity to express your anger, which is after all selfishness. You say, what's the best thing for my child? So the first rule is say, look, that rule was broken and you will be grounded or whatever the rule is. But let me say this, you're better than that. I think that's a really important point about unconditional love and specialness, is that you can communicate to a child that you've failed on this occasion, but you're better than that, that you believe in them. That's the first rule, you're better than that. The second rule is you say, look, you've had a few beers tonight, you need to go to bed, but tomorrow we'll go out for a milkshake, coffee, whatever, and we'll talk about it. And I'll get you to tell me what strategies you can use next time to avoid this problem. You empower the kids to make their own decision about how to solve the problem, rather than you preaching at them and becoming like a policeman to them. And that way the kids will learn that, okay, they messed up, but they're not a bad person. They're not a bad person. They're messed up and they're better than that. You believe in them. And it might be something serious like drugs. Excuse me. You believe in them. They're better than that. And secondly, that you give them the opportunity to discover and develop strategies themselves, and you talk it through with them. And then they are empowered to change the future. Let me go through now some top tips for disciplining children in love from the Fathering Project. Stay warm and calm, yet firm when talking about behaviour. You don't want the kids to be afraid of you. Secondly, be consistent. Kids often say in the Fathering Project, one of the annoying things was that my parents created a boundary fence. They gave us freedom within that, but a boundary fence, and they wouldn't budge. They wouldn't budge. And we kept banging up against that fence, and they wouldn't budge. But we are so grateful now that they kept that fence right there. Be consistent. Thirdly, be fair with discipline. Kids can spot inequalities straight away. They can do it right from when they're young. So always be fair with your discipline. Be fair with the consequences, be fair with the distribution of discipline between the kids. The next suggestion is to give what I call the 2-minute warning. We found with our kids that when they're about to break a rule, it's actually quite helpful if we can just remind them, it might be a simple rule, it's time for bed or it's time to leave. To give them a warning, a bit of a countdown. And in some sports, of course, they have the 2-minute warning, so you know the end is coming up. And we found that some of our kids did much better when they had that countdown, so that by the time it got to that point, they were ready. Finally, when it comes to discipline, don't just be the disciplinarian. Catch your kids doing good things and affirm them. This is a big issue for dads who often thought their job is to provide income for the kids' schools, etc., and to discipline the kids. This is an old-fashioned notion of fathering. Find times when the kids do well and keep affirming them so that when your discipline comes in, that's not the only voice they hear from you. So remember, there is a way to discipline the kids in love, to help them feel like they're better than that and that failure doesn't make them a bad person. And there's ways to empower them as a dad so that they learn how to deal with it better. They learn how to deal with peer pressure better. They learn to deal with all sorts of things better because you help them think through it and help them solve the problem. They have to learn good behaviour. If you don't teach them good behaviour, then you're letting them down. But how to communicate your discipline while still loving them is a very powerful thing. And this is part of our Fathering Fundamentals program in the Fathering Project.